With the popularity of survival games in recent years, it's easy to overlook some of the hidden gems, and that's why today we'll be starting a new adventure in State of Decay 2, a zombie open world survival game where you build a small community of survivors who can permanently die as we fight to liberate the world one plague heart at a time. This game has a very unique take on zombie survival game. If you know this game, then you know what I mean, but if you don't, it's better if I just show you. So if you're interested in zombies, open world and survival, let's get into it. Our first job is to start a new community. You can choose whether to play or skip the tutorial before choosing one of 5 difficulty settings. I definitely advise standard for your first playthrough, unless you're a heartless savage who doesn't mind all of your survivors having their limbs torn off. The next step is choosing a map you'd like to play on, but don't worry, as you progress the game you will unlock the ability to travel to new maps with the same community, and there is a random option if you don't want to decide. The map I chose myself was Providence Ridge, because when I played this game years ago I don't remember that map being in the game or playing it myself. Now the fun begins. It's time to choose our 3 starting survivors. These are randomly generated and can be re-rolled if you don't like the look of someone. Each character comes with their own story, strength and weaknesses. I went with Burton because why not, Josh because I like his beanie, and the legendary Ceren, slayer of all zombies and plague hearts, saviour of the neighbourhood. Then we click start community, and with all that out of the way, we're thrown straight into the thick of a zombie ridden world with nothing but our wits, a crowbar and a car without any gas. Now our first task should be to establish a base for the safety of our community, but I want gas for my car first, so I'm going to have to walk into town and scavenge for resources. As I do, the lovely Breton lets me know that there is a plague cart nearby, and that we won't be able to set up a base in the surrounding area, the red zone on the map. So I scavenge the local town using the fast search option at the risk of making extra noise and attracting zombies. As I discovered a revolver in a nearby car, I was swarmed by zombies and had to make a run for it before fighting back. Isn't the combat just so gruesomely satisfying, or is that just me? Whilst in town, Burton had a mission to go and see Thomas, a member of another community that needed our help retrieving stolen goods, which you could say went poorly. I finished looting a few things, got some gas from my car, and headed off with Thomas to retrieve his stolen chemicals. Although we did stop briefly, killed a few zombies, and retrieved a beautiful new cowboy hat for Burton, which I immediately took advantage of, turning him into the most feared stripper in the Wild West. After a short drive, splatting zombies with the car doors, Thomas and I arrived at the Soul Eater's hideout, which should have been a sign of things to come. I talked to Isadora and things were going smoothly. She gave me the chemicals, so Thomas and I began leaving. That's when the Soul Eaters changed their mind, attacking us from behind. One of them began attacking Thomas, and I used my FPS training to mow down the Soul Eaters, but it was too late for Thomas, as I would later find out he had been decapitated by a meat cleaver. Poor Thomas. I returned to Thomas's friend Dommy, told him of Thomas's demise, and offered for him to join my community. And that is how you expand your community. Accidentally get the friends' heads chopped off so that they join you. I finally moved into my first base with Josh, Dommy and the legendary Ceren. I stashed a few bits and pieces into the base before I scouted the nearby area from my newly acquired watchtower. Whilst I do some admin work in base, I'll quickly explain how State of Decay 2 works. Your community needs food, meds, ammo, materials and fuel in order to function. These provide beneficial effects and keep your community happy so they don't fight with each other or leave, as well as performing better in combat. You can find all of these things in rucksacks around the map or claim outposts, which provide daily resources, but more on that later. During that explanation, I received my first personal mission, which was for Josh, so I switched over to play him in order to activate it, before stealing all of Burton's possessions from his inventory. Thank you, Bert. Dommy wasn't impressed with Josh going out of the base for luxury goods, but nobody likes Dommy. He's new here, so I went anyway.
Fuck that.
First, I returned to the scene of the crime, the house where Thomas was murdered, to finish collecting the loot that I missed. Whilst looting, I noticed an Easter egg of a skeleton who died with his Xbox controller and TV remote by his side, which I thought was pretty amusing. I'm not sure what they were trying to say about us gamers, but my attention was shifted when I found Thomas's body, which had had its head removed with a meat cleaver earlier. Poor Thomas. Anyway, I looted Thomas's headless body, collected Josh's luxury item, and headed home. This is where the real fun begins. Since Josh was injured, I switched to the soon-to-be legendary Ceren, and decided I would take on my first plague heart, after stealing all of the items from Josh's inventory of course. I sped nervously towards the plague heart, not knowing what to expect, and what a shock I was in for. On arrival, there was a horde of 6 zombies outside, which should have been the first sign of danger, but they were swiftly taken care of by spinning my car into them like a Beyblade, and crashing them into each other. In the middle of the night, I walked up to the door, entered the house, and there it was. The plague heart, a gruesome construction of rib cages and flesh, and this was the easy part. As I hit it with my crowbar, it let out a screech, so I ran for it, but the plague cart was attracting zombies. After dealing with a couple of brain eaters, I re-entered the house and continued hacking away at the plague cart. Before I knew it, a zombie had blocked me in, so the legendary Ceren dived through the window like she was in a Tom Cruise movie, then I started smacking zombies with a crowbar. As I panicked, fearing for Keren's life, I made my first big mistake, pulling out my revolver and letting off a few shots. The game kindly pointed out that it was loud, as I attracted so many zombies. As Ceren fought and ran, pushing the zombies off her, it was too much. Even popping a few heads made no difference. Desperate, with hope quickly fading, I ran for the most overpowered weapon I had in my arsenal, the car. In one swift spin I was saved, and continued my assault on the plague cart. This time it let off a cloud of gas, so I knew I must be making progress. As I kited some zombies outside, Ceren took another hit, filling the infection bar and infecting her with the blood plague. With only 3 hours to live, the clock was now ticking, and I had to decide whether to stay or go. But the legendary Ceren never backs down. Through a process I call abusing the car, I was able to mow down tens of zombies, chipping away at the plague cart slowly, diving over ledges to avoid being eaten on my way back to the car. I squashed one final set of zombies before finally the plague cart was defeated, and I got all of its delicious loot, including a crossbow, which is my favourite weapon in this entire game. But the clock was ticking. I drove home quickly, smashing through zombies to get Ceren to the base. On arrival, I went straight to the infirmary and checked her in. Since the infection was already set in, I switched to Josh and made a plague cure from the samples I had fortunately collected. Before administering the cure, legendary Ceren lived to fight another day, and fight she eventually would. Whilst Ceren was recovering, I took the time to play Josh and do some admin around the base. In State of Decay 2, you can build facilities in your base, which give many different bonuses and abilities, such as increasing morale or receiving certain materials daily. The first facility I'm building is a workshop, as salvaging sounds useful, but mainly so that I can craft bolts for my new crossbow. However, as you can see by this little orange bar, building a workshop takes time, so I will have to keep myself busy. I had a quick look at my map to see what I could do for a few minutes, and I spotted a horde of zombies outside my base, so I went out to face them the only way I know how: car abuse. Josh's next personal mission is to make contact with Ulysses from the Motel Hoppers, and while the legendary Ceren has her concerns, I'd like to see what they have to trade.
We're going to get hurt one day trying to take care of everyone.
So with Keren's wise words falling on deaf ears, I took some gas out of the storage, filled up my battered and bruised little car, and made my way to see the Motel Hoppers, splattering a few zombies for my own amusement along the way. The Motel Hoppers were holed up in a supermarket, and Ulysses wanted to trade with me. I told him we'd eventually work up to a discount so that I could see what he has to offer. His shop wasn't bad actually, selling explosives, medical supplies and various machetes, but as my base is running low on materials, I eventually bought both rucksacks from them and took off. I went home and stored both rucksacks in my base, giving me 10 materials to work with. That's when a nearby car caught my attention, so I went to have a look, only to find a 9mm pistol in the trunk. I wish I knew that earlier. So I returned to base, happy with my new pistol, organised a few things, and decided it was finally time to promote one of my characters to be the leader of my community. Now unfortunately, the legendary Ceren hadn't earned enough standing in the community to become the leader, so Josh had to pull up his big boy pants and step up. In State of Decay 2, there are 4 different types of leaders: a sheriff, a builder, a warlord, and a trader like Josh. Each leader type provides different bonuses for your community. Take trader for example. Josh being my leader will provide me with extra food per day, the ability to summon traders using my radio, and I can now craft luxury items to trade once I have the correct facilities installed in my base. So with Josh as my leader and my workshop completed, I decided to craft some crossbow bolts. Since I have a light crossbow, I need light crossbow bolts, which cost 20 spare parts to craft. Luckily for me, I brought home 10 materials earlier and can break them down in the storage area into 20 spare parts each. With 45 crossbow bolts in hand, I felt unstoppable. I could now quietly kill zombies from far away, which could be the difference between life and death. This is when I got a call from Bill, a survivor infected with the blood plague, offering to trade with me before he dies. That's nice of him. So I took off to see what bargains Bill had in store for me, remembered that cars have headlights, and arrived at the rustic house on the hill to see Bill, who was looking a little worse for wear. Whilst Bill was politely asking me to kill him, the game prompted me with the option to not only mercy kill Bill, but also to cure him. As much as I'd love to kill Bill, I'd also like him to join my community. So I sped off to my base to get a cure. Smashing through the gate like a bat out of hell, I crafted a plague cure at the infirmary, jumped back in my car and continued on my way to save Bill. I returned to Bill, in record time I might add, to deliver the cure, save his life and recruit him to my community. I had saved Bill's life and he said it himself.
I owe you one.
He owed me one. So you can imagine my surprise when recruitment was unavailable. Not only that, but my relationship with Bill was was so bad that I couldn't enlist him as a follower. Well, I won't be wasting any more plague cures on him again, so I angrily looted Bill's home, stealing a few shotgun shells and a Molotov, and stormed out of his house. On the drive home, I took my frustration out on a horde of zombies at the bottom of the street, parked up, and decided that it was time for Josh to have a day off. Since Dommy had a mission available, it made sense to switch to him, and in doing so I noticed his craftsmanship had reached max level. As you level up your character's skills in State of Decay 2, they become better at doing the associated task. However, once you reach 7 stars in a skill, you're able to choose a specialisation. This is a choice between 2 random effects. In my case here, I could choose between metalwork and construction for Dommy, but the choices will likely be different for each character. I went with metalworking as masterwork melee weapons sounds bloody amazing, so I switched to Dommy and stole all of Josh's items. Also, I've been giving each of my survivors a gun whilst they're in base to defend themselves, as they seem to only use ammo from the base itself, not my supplies. However, shortly after Dommy was ready to leave, I noticed Josh had another mission, so I switched to Josh, stole the items back from Dommy and gave him a gun. Another mission had appeared to bring materials to the Motel Hoppers, so I collected a rucksack from storage and went on my merry way. Another horde at the bottom of the street required some quick car abuse. This damaged my car more than I was comfortable with, so I swapped to my light blue machine and made my way to the Motel Hoppers. After politely handing over my materials and seeing what Brooks had to trade, I noticed something interesting. The recruit to community option was free. Finally, another member was going to join me. You can talk to each survivor and learn about what skills they have. First, I talked to Janice, who was incredibly durable but had no outstanding skills. Then I talked to Brooks, who was completely useless unless you fancied a cocktail. And then there was Ulysses, whose name should have been an indicator that this badass sharpshooting mechanic was the only choice to make. Unfortunately, recruiting Ulysses disbanded the Motel Hoppers, so I could no longer trade with them, but it was a worthwhile trade indeed. I quickly looted the base that they had abandoned, finding Josh a new leather trench coat and a small arsenal of ammo, a crossbow, and various weapon components, so I filled up my trunk with various rucksacks that I bought from the now disbanded Motel Hoppers, and suddenly received a message from Nate, a member of the Distillers. Little did I know that this will be the start of an emotional saga that would rival your favourite anime for story arc and shocking twists, but we'll leave all that for next time. Thanks very much for watching. Bye now.